this company and Owais Dagra, its owner, founder, were in the notice of this meeting. And I think the important part of today isn't the business or how many stores Owais has, and how many square feet they are, and the operational aspects. I think the importance of a speaker such as Owais Dagra is in trying to look at them and say, well, what are the ingredients that made this individual successful against all odds? As I've worked with Owais and seen what he does all over the place, under control, then revamping those stores that he bought, adding gas, bringing on a management team, selling off some bad ones, acquiring some good ones, learning how to do a ground-up facility through a lease, now doing them on his own. Very well thought out strategic planning. These are the kinds of things that can translate to all kinds of businesses. So we're not necessarily here to find out how to be successful in the C-store business, but we're trying to look at a local kid who at a very young age, about 10 years younger than me, has achieved so much by using all of these ingredients. So why don't we give a warm welcome to a local kid made good, Owais Dagra. Owais?
Oh boy. There you go. I start doing it and I mess up. All right. Stan, can you help me out with this? There you go. Is that okay? Volume? Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I want to express my sincere appreciation to Gary for his gracious introduction, and I wish to thank the members of the Richmond Venture Capital Club for inviting me to be your guest speaker today. I am truly honored to have this opportunity to talk about Southern Express and the challenges of running a small business enterprise. In thinking about the introduction that I just received and the kind comments that were made about Southern Express, I'm reminded of a true story. The story involves a speaker at a meeting rather identical to this one, who was, by personal disposition, a very humble man. However, his introduction as a speaker cited a long list of personal accomplishments, and the successes of his company were heavily touted. The speaker then commented that he wished that his parents could have been present at the meeting to hear the introduction. The speaker wished that his father could have been present because his father would have been very proud. He wished that his mother could have been present because she would have believed that he had actually done all the wonderful things said about him and his company. Well, I'm here to tell you that my father would have been very proud, and that my mother indeed can think of nothing that I cannot accomplish. Thank God for mothers. However, I want to assure you that I'm no less humble than the speaker in the anecdote. As the primary theme of my presentation today, I'm going to invite you to focus with me on 12 fundamental principles and philosophies that I have adopted as the guideposts for wise decision-making and success in developing Southern Express. My comments today are not intended to sound like a lecture or to suggest that all of your challenges in business will be solved by the principles that I will discuss. I'm happy to share these comments with you because they've worked for Southern Express, and perhaps they will be helpful to you. Before I get too much further into the presentation, I would like to share with you some background information on Southern Express. The corporate entity Southern Retailers, Inc., which trades under the name Southern Express Convenience Stores, was incorporated in 1991 to acquire the assets and business of Utotum of Virginia, Inc., which operated a chain of 13 convenience stores in the Richmond metropolitan area. The Utotum chain had been available for sale for several years. Their stores were outdated in style and image. They were losing money and were at the brink of insolvency when purchased by Southern Express. During our first year in operation at Southern Express, we succeeded in making a profit. Since that time, we've taken a variety of steps and actions to improve our operations and financial performance. The success and accomplishment of Southern Express have resulted from the commitment, devotion, integrity, and hard work of its human resources. As I stand before you today, I wish for you to see me not as Owais Dagra, an individual, but as Owais Dagra, the representative of the entire Southern Express family. I ask your brief indulgence as I recognize and acknowledge the presence of two individuals who have made special contributions to Southern Express. There are numerous stories about small business entrepreneurs who were never able to establish a business or who could not operate a business successfully because of lack of capital and financing. I, too, would have been one of those sad, sad stories had it not been for the financing that Consolidated Bank and Trust Company provided at the time I was seeking to acquire the assets of Utotem. Therefore, the first special recognition goes to Mr. Bernard W. Henley, who is the Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Consolidated Bank. It is doubtful that I would be standing here before you today but for the faith and confidence demonstrated by Mr. Henley. I am convinced that Mr. Henley was persuaded by the passion, intensity, and strength of will with which I communicated my strategies and plans for Southern Express. But there is a moral to this experience. If you don't manifest a passion, intensity about your plans, why should anybody go out of their way for you? The second person that I wish to recognize is Henry Tucker, who is an attorney with the firm of Herschler Fleischer, Weinberg, Cox, and Allen. In addition to handling our legal matters, he has demonstrated an uncommon degree of interest, concern, and caring about Southern Express. He exhibits the qualities and personal characteristics that are important to me, such as commitment, dedication, loyalty, willingness to go the extra mile, and proficiency. I realize that each of you came here today armed with the expectation that I would offer some sophisticated and sublime comments about small business entrepreneurship, or offer some truly insightful analysis concerning Southern Express that would leave an indelible impression on you. So now is the time to talk about an adjustment in your expectations. Let there be no mistake about it. I am enormously proud of all of that has been accomplished by Southern Express. We have succeeded in turning around the financial performance of the stores acquired from Utotem. We are competing successfully in a highly competitive industry. We have demonstrated a success in operating profitably in locations, many of which are in urban areas that our competitors have rejected. We adopted a strategic focus for the management of the company. We developed a prototype with respect to store design, construction, and layout that has tremendous curb appeal and is very well received by our customers. We have been successful in making ourselves increasingly market-focused and customer service-oriented. We have a program in which we have sold and continue to sell underperforming assets. We adopted ambitious plans for growth, and in a short amount of time, we plan to double our size of operation. We have been very mindful of and sensitive to the need to manage the company's finances to accommodate our plans for growth at an aggressive pace, and we have recently completed a financing package that will fuel those plans. We have succeeded in attracting and continue to attract sophisticated and experienced management talent to the company. Our company has grown from a chain of 13 stores with a revenue base of $4 million to a chain of 20 stores with a revenue base of $25 million. We have sought to be good corporate citizens in the communities in which we operate by making substantial investments in new facilities. I should point out that we have frequently developed our stores on sites that were formerly occupied by dilapidated structures or abandoned buildings or otherwise unappreciated for their developmental potential. Over the next 2 years, we have plans to make additional capital expenditures of approximately $15 million, which is not an insignificant sum in our communities. And last but not least, we believe that we have identified our problems and challenges as a company, and we are working very hard to correct and overcome them. I sincerely hope that you have a better understanding of the reasons for my sense of pride and accomplishment. In thinking about the guidance that I would share with you concerning the reasons for the company's successes, I can think of nothing that I would attribute to the current fads about business management or to a brand new strategy that no corporation has ever used before, or to some insight about my industry that has escaped everybody but me. In all candor, we have managed our business the old-fashioned way, in accordance with certain fundamental principles and philosophies that are doubtless familiar to you. I believe in those principles and philosophies, and I am convinced that they have been essential to my success, and that they are timeless and enduring in their application to success in any business. At this point, I would like to share some of those principles and philosophies with you. First, one has to think big and truly believe that visions and ambitions can be accomplished. I cannot begin to tell you how many people told me that I was making a big mistake in acquiring the assets of Utotem, and that my plans for growth were doomed to failure. I believe that much of history stands for the proposition that visionaries are first uniformly criticized. And certainly much of our society today stands for the proposition that you can accept only that which is tried and tested. It can't be done would be the most accurate statement that I could offer to you about the attitude of critics regarding my plans for Southern Express. But I'm here to tell you, folks, we did it. If you remember only one thing that I say today, remember that you can do it too. If you think it can't be done, then my friends, I assure you, it will never be done. By the way, I also believe that there is an important distinction between visions and dreams. There's a fine line there, and a lot of times I see people sort of deviate from this, and I think it's important to note that distinction. Dreams consist of desires for certain results and achievements supported only by wishes and faith. Visions consist of special goals and objectives calculated to produce an intended result that are supported by actions, strategies, initiative, and deeds. Faith is always important, but remember that the Almighty will only help those who help themselves. The second principle in philosophy that I wish to discuss is the need for a long-term plan and strategic vision for the growth of a company, coupled with a short-term plan that emphasizes tangible results and benefits. Why do I say this? Why is growth really important? Do we seek to grow for the mere sake of growth? Let's examine my thinking on this matter. A company needs to grow because, in the final analysis, it depends on the commitment of its human resources and management talent to sustain success and prosperity. The most highly talented individuals are attracted to businesses where their needs are best met, where they find the strongest incentive to produce, and where they are rewarded for their contributions. In order for a company to create these strong incentives for its people, it needs to constantly expand the opportunities for reward, recognition, and fulfillment. In other words, it needs to grow. So why is it important to have a long-term plan coupled with short-term results? If you do not realize short-term results, I believe that you will find yourself exhausted as a company, and you will not be around for the long term. On the other hand, if you focus only on the short-term plan, you will not anticipate or plan for the many changes that are occurring in the overall business environment, or in your industry, or among your competitors, or in the markets in which you do business. In other words, you're likely to find yourself being overtaken by more thoughtful and better prepared competitors. Nothing in business today is stagnant. You either grow or you shrink. You either acquire or you become acquired. We all operate in a challenging and unforgiving business environment, and unfortunately, in some respects, business is a zero-sum game. The third principle that I wish to discuss regarding small business entrepreneurship is the value of establishing strategic alliances or relationships with parties who are genuinely knowledgeable about your business and industry and can provide guidance in achieving corporate goals and objectives. The resources, management experience, and commitment of two parties are always better than that of a single party. There are certain principles that one should be guided by in seeking to establish a strategic relationship. You should assume the burden of determining and communicating how your prospective ally will benefit from a strategic relationship with your company. What does the other party need? What can you offer to the other party to meet their needs? A proposal to establish a strategic relationship should focus on the benefits of both parties and ensure that the relationship is a win-win scenario. Knowing how to structure a relationship does not answer the question of how one identifies a strategic ally. It is always important to identify an individual or organization whose ethics, demeanor, integrity, and principles reflect the highest standards and aspirations. Southern Express has benefited greatly from its strategic relationship with Frank Bradley and his companies. And at this point, I ask your indulgence as I recognize Frank, who is the owner and chief executive officer of Fas Mart convenience stores and the Beal Company. Frank, in his role as a strategic ally, mentor, valued friend, and advisor, has contributed significantly to the growth of Southern Express and its ongoing development. The relationship between Frank and me speaks to another important aspect. It is not essential that you find an ally who is in the same markets or operates an organization that is the mirror image of yours. Southern Express and Fas Mart are very different organizations in terms of style of operations and market coverage. However, the common ground shared by both of us is adherence to high principles and values regarding the conduct of our businesses. The fourth principle in philosophy that I want to discuss concerns communications. On this score, I want to emphasize that one should never have a hidden agenda in dealing with people. Say what you mean and mean what you say. Nothing is as transparent as duplicity, manipulation, and selfishness. I don't know of anybody with whom I have done business who did not expect that I would benefit from a proposed transaction. Always be upfront about your needs and expected benefits. No one will be surprised, and as I said earlier, always make sure that all parties benefit from a proposed transaction. Another aspect of communications that I wish to emphasize concerns your being the loudest and most active cheerleader of your vision for the organization and the reasons that support it. It is my constant endeavor to instill in the management staff of Southern Express an appreciation for their being fervent advocates for the goals, objectives, strategies, and plans of the company. Employees love to hear from the boss and want to know what's on the boss's mind. The fifth principle in philosophy is to have a sense of urgency and intensity about everything you do. There is no doubt in my mind that for most small business enterprises, when windows of opportunities present themselves, it is not possible to do later what could have been done immediately. Besides, to miss an opportunity for as little as one day means one day that the competition is ahead of you. There is no such thing as a 40-hour work week. Weeks don't count. Days don't count. Every minute counts. That's the level of intensity that I endeavor to sustain day in and day out. The seventh principle is to emphasize and practice forward thinking. Like any other small business enterprise that is pursuing ambitious goals at an aggressive pace, Southern Express has encountered more than its share of challenges. In such circumstances, we aspire to focus on creating and pursuing solutions and not whining about our problems. It is important that you never feel sorry regarding the problems and that a high degree of focus is always maintained on finding and effectuating solutions. The eighth principle in philosophy is to learn from mistakes. This is very important. One should have the courage to take risks and expect to make mistakes. However, the same level of courage needs to apply in quickly recognizing and admitting your mistakes and then examining and critiquing them. Some of the mistakes will be big ones. Never hesitate to take drastic actions to correct the mistake, even if it means that you go 180 degrees in the opposite direction. The abiding application of this principle has enabled Southern Express to identify more profitable opportunities than would have been the case from pure creativity. I'd like to get some water. Thanks. Another key element that I wish to discuss is education. When I encourage you to emphasize education, I do not mean formal academic education. My experience has been that every activity, encounter, and event can result in a benefit if viewed with an eye toward educating oneself. I want to share you an example here which will lead right into the next philosophy that I'm going to talk about. I was sitting and flipping TV channels the other day, and I saw a movie, Karate Kid 3. I don't know how many of you all have seen Karate Kid 3. Anybody? Okay. You've seen it twice? It's really interesting. You know, when we talk about education, there was a scene in the movie where, you know, this young girl is the Karate Kid, and the teacher is that Japanese guy. And she's very ambitious. You know, she's out there, she just wants to tear the world up and all of that good stuff. And he makes a comment, and it really struck with me when I heard it. And he said, ambition without knowledge is like a boat on dry land. Does that make any sense to anybody here? Well, I thought it was really interesting, which leads me into my next principle, and it's knowledge. There are a lot of small businesses out there that are very ambitious, that are very gung-ho about their plans, but they sometimes lack knowledge. Small business entrepreneurs are confronted by a wide variety of tasks, demands, and challenges about which they must be knowledgeable. However, due to limited financial resources or lack of personal business management experience, such entrepreneurs often find themselves operating with limitations with respect to knowledge and talent needed to run a successful growing organization in a highly competitive environment. It has been my approach to overcome these challenges through developing an external team of talented individuals representing various professional disciplines that can supplement the resources and management of Southern Express. Southern Express has been very fortunate in having assembled a very capable and dedicated external team of professionals, and I want to recognize its members briefly. Bob Kiter of Kiter Stevens. I'd like for you all to give Bob a big hand. Thank you. Gary LeClaire of LeClaire Ryan. And Henry Tucker of Herschel Fleischer. Each one of them are full-fledged members in good standing of the Southern Express extended family. Each of them is valued, and their contributions are noteworthy because they always seek to provide services and support beyond the standard services of their professions. The 11th principle in philosophy is creativity. One needs to be creative in small business management, but it is not essential to be inventive. There's a fine line between being creative and being inventive, just like there's a fine line between dreams and visions. In the case of Southern Express, creativity was manifested in the decisions made about the market niche in which we would operate. We studied our circumstances, our industry, and our markets, and we determined that we could operate successfully in a certain niche. Much of success is determined by thinking of creative applications or uses of concepts that already exist, rather than inventing new ones. All one has to do is to recall the fact that VCRs were invented in America, but it was the Japanese who saw their potential as a consumer product. I'll share an example with you, a first-hand example about what I'm talking about here. In being creative, you know, when you talk about creativity, the first thing that comes to mind is creative financing. Everybody talks about creative financing. Well, about 3 years ago, we were faced with a situation where we had just gotten started. We were about a year into our operation, and I wanted to remodel some stores and acquire some equipment. And my access to capital through normal channels, banks, was limited. And I didn't want to exhaust those lines because I was also in the process of acquiring locations. So what I did was I went to the leasing companies. You know, leasing companies come to you and say, well, you know, leasing is the way to go. I said, well, great. You know, hey, I'll just lease it. So when we filed the application and all that, they came back and they said, well, we got a little problem here, Owais. And the problem is we need some collateral. So, well, I'm leasing the equipment. Why do you need collateral? Well, it's leasing, but we really, when we underwrite it, we really look at it just like it's a bank loan. I said, okay. So what do you need? Well, you want $200,000 worth of equipment, so we'll take a CD in the amount of $200,000. So I said, well, that's great. What is it that you're looking for? And bottom line is, what they're looking for is an assurance that they're going to get paid. Well, it just so happened at that time frame that we had some fuel tax bonds and utility bonds that came up for renewal. And you know what fuel tax bonds are and VEPCO bonds are, leased insurance bonds. They guarantee the payment to VEPCO, or they guarantee the payment of taxes to DMV or whatever. So I thought about that, and I said, now, wait a minute, why couldn't we get a lease bond from an insurance company? So I contacted my insurance company. I said, well, here's the deal. You underwrite, the bottom line is you underwrite the bonds for us where you feel that your obligation is, or your exposure is, if we don't make the payments, you will. So what's the difference in looking at leasing the same way? And guess what? It worked. So we ended up doing all of our remodels through that technique. We ended up borrowing, the money came in through leasing companies, and their leases were guaranteed by lease bonds issued from our insurance company. I thought that was pretty creative. But again, I'd like to point out that it wasn't reinventing the wheel. We used a concept that was already in existence. We just found a different application for it. So that's what I mean when I say creativity and invention. And the thing to remember is application of concepts that are already out there. Well, my last principle in philosophy is to recognize that no one principle will be the basis of success in a small business. Success is the result of several ingredients. And I want to give special recognition to a consideration that has been very helpful to me in the growth of Southern Express. I call it support on the home front. I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to my wife, Urshi, who's present here with us today, for all that she has made possible for me to do in business arena by her being so committed and attentive to matters on the home front. Her support, steadfastness, understanding, acceptance of my intensity and passion for Southern Express, tolerance for my irregular hours, and always maintaining our house as an inviting home to which I always look forward to returning is appreciated beyond mere words. Ladies and gentlemen, with that comment, I'm going to bring my presentation to a conclusion. I'll be happy to answer any questions you all would have. I thank you very much for your kind attention, and thank the Richmond Venture Capital Club again for inviting me to be your guest speaker. Thank you.